Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam in Life with me, Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, how should Muslims forbid evil in Western societies?
Adultery, gambling, idol worshipping and intoxication. For Muslims, these are intolerable acts. For non-Muslims, these can be forms of entertainment. In fact, these acts are considered evil by most world religions. For Muslims, however, they are some of the greatest sins known to mankind. The Holy Quran advises Muslims that a group from among them should invite people to good, to encourage people to do what's right, and to forbid evil. There is also a promise of success for such groups. So important is this activity of forbidding evil that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the time when his followers merely count on others to forbid evil is when they have declared a war against God. This concept of forbidding evil is an essential social practice of an Islamic community, a necessary feature to ensure the health of a Muslim society. But in Western secular societies, forbidding evil can be seen as a nuisance, particularly when other members of the public don't agree with the core values of Islam. The number of Muslims prevalent in Western societies is growing, and the influence that they have in the social development of their countries is strengthening. It is debatable how far Muslims should go in helping the moral makeup of their societies, particularly when not doing so may affect their own lives and their children. So what does Islam say about forbidding evil? And how can Prophet Muhammad's advice be followed? This week's Islam in Life asks, how should Muslims forbid evil in Western societies?
That's an important question. When we come back to the very essence of Islam and the Islamic teachings, we find this as something which is important for every Muslim, women and men. Al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy anil munkar, promoting what is right and resisting what is bad, the evil, wherever the Muslims are living. And when they are in the West, it's important to come back and to try to understand in which way, from saying La ilaha illallah, there is one God and no other God, to being a practicing Muslim and contributing to the society. What does it mean in the Western society? How can we promote this presence and resisting what is bad in Western society, and in this way to be contributing to a better future within the society? And these are questions that are important because many Muslims are asking, how can I do when I see things that are not right, when I see things that are not Islamic? How could I resist everything which is perceived in my ethical teaching as evil or bad or sins? What can I do? So to answer all these questions, I'm joined by my guest, Islamic scholar and lecturer, Sayyid Fadil Bahrul Ulum. Thank you so much for being with us today. Let me start with this teaching because I think it's central. And when we come back to the Quran, it's connected to being the best community said among human beings. Kuntu khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. So you are the why? Because you promote what is right and you resist what is bad and what is evil. So let me ask you about this first. How can we understand the essence of the Islamic faith based on resisting what is bad and forbidding what is evil? How would you explain this?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for the introduction. And just before we get into more details about the issue, we need to bear in mind that we're talking about Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar, promoting good and preventing evil in the Western societies, i.e. in non-Muslim societies. So that means there is a major difference between the ways which are possibly can be done, whether it's here or in a Muslim country. So let's talk about general ruling related to Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. But at the same time, we should link it directly to the issue that when we try to prevent evil or do Nahi anil Munkar, we need to consider the fact that here in the West, we are living in a non-Muslim society.
We'll come to this. This is the main point of our discussion. But before we come to, because many Muslims are asking the question and say, okay, that's fine. We have to promote what is right. We have to prevent evil or resist what is bad. Now, what does it mean first? And then we come to, in the context of the Western societies, how can we translate this into reality?
In general, Muslims' responsibility is to promote the good deeds, to show to people and to teach people, to ask people to do the good things and to prevent any kind of bad things, bad behavior, bad habits. This is a general ruling. And all Muslim groups, madahib, schools of thoughts, they agreed on this principle. They may vary between themselves about how they categorize this. Like I know for the four Sunni madahib, they have Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar as very, very important, and for the Shia school of thought, they have it as one of the 10 branches of Islam or 10 pillars of Islam. And they all agree because in the Quran there is more than one ayah asking or instructing the Muslim to practice Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. As you just mentioned, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. And there are so many other ayat, directly and indirectly, plus a hadith from, whether it's from the Holy Prophet, from the Imam of Al-Bayt, from other Ashab, companion, etc. Plus the practices by all Anbiya, all the prophets. All of it came from the concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. How to do it, where to do it, when to do it, this is the issue.
Yes, but there is a very important point here. A practicing Muslim, women or men, when we talk about this, and we were saying for some it's a pillar, for others it's something which is the core of al-aqidah, which is the very essence of being a good Muslim. The creed of Muslims means, yes, there are 5 pillars that we know about them, praying and fasting and all this, but wherever the Muslims are is also to have a clear presence in ethical terms, promoting what is right, but also resisting. The point is here that we may disagree on the principle, we may disagree on the means. How do we do this? And some are going very far in preventing what is bad and evil. How would you explain this from an Islamic perspective? The means are as important as the objective when it comes to resisting what is bad.
Going back to first principle, when it gets to Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, there are few rulings which should be considered in general in relation to this important pillar or core, as you just mentioned. And this is number one, the one who is taking the responsibility in Amr bil Ma'ruf or Nahy anil Munkar, he should be safe himself. He should feel safe. Second, he should guarantee that he will be listened to. There should be some people who are going to understand him and listen to him, rather than him just saying things sounds like nonsense issues. Number 3 is the right place and the right timing. And number 4 and number 5 and number 6 and the hadith. There is a hadith, well-known hadith by all Muslims. Most Muslims agree about من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان, which means whoever sees something wrong, let him try to change it either by hand or force, or if not by talking, explaining, whatever, discussing, if not deep inside his heart, although this is not highly recommended. ذلك أضعف الإيمان. But that it means that there are 3 main categories to this pillar, And the Muslim, the mu'min, the believer, should follow the order of that. It's like khisal al-kafara, we say. We've got things in Islam where the order is important, like salah. Salat al-subh has got to be before salat al-dhuhr. Dhuhr has got to be before asr. We can't pray isha before subh. Even if we pray
the last prayer cannot be before.
Yes, so the order is important in Hajj, in Umrah. You do this and then you do that. You do tawaf, salat tawaf, and then you
so
do
the order in the hadith is not by accident.
No.
Yeah.
It's within the Islamic system. Islam encourage us to be well organized, and everything should be crystal clear. It's a system, it's a well laid down. It's
there
like
are priorities
a structure.
and secondary. Yes. Okay, so let me come to the point that you made before about living in a non-Muslim majority country, living in the West, which is a non-Muslim, the great majority, except in very small regions in Europe. But these are non-Muslim majority countries. Now, many Muslims, millions of Muslims are now European Muslims, American Muslims, Australian Muslims, Japanese Muslims, whatever. They are now living in non-Muslim majority countries, or Indian Muslims, where the society is not a majority society. And then we are talking here about the West. They see things that are not right from an Islamic perspective. What would you say about this? What is the responsibility? Because some are saying, even you can't stay here because there are too many haram, illicit things around you. This is not the place. It's even dar el-kufr. It's even the space of rejection of truth. So now you live in this society. From an Islamic perspective, how do you have to deal with the surrounding society when you see so many things that are wrong?
First of all, let's admit that although it's a non-Muslim society, but as Sheikh Muhammad Abdu or Sheikh Rifa'a, one of the famous mashayikh of Al-Azhar, when he visited France, I think he said,
Muhammad Abdu,
Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, rahmatullah alayhi, رأيت إسلاما بلا مسلمين. I think we all agree that in Europe we can find sometimes Islamic behavior, although they are not Muslims. So we need to be fair.
So it's not all that.
It's not completely dar al-kufr and rejection, whatever. But at the same time, we all admit and agree that the society sometimes, the society is not our society, it's not a Muslim society, and when it gets to social issues, values, raising children, it is difficult. We all agreed. So it's a matter of personal choice and compromise for those who decided to live in the West because they want to gain and benefit from the Western values. They should, I'm not saying that they should compromise, but they should try to come in terms with what's there around them, especially when it gets to nahi anil munkar, to forbidding sins and evil and whatever. It should be done in a right, civilized way, number one. Number two, they should understand and accept the fact that it is a non-Muslim society.
But let us come to the first, right and civilized way. What does it mean? Exactly. Because at the beginning when you were talking or commenting the hadith, you said by force or in an active way. So anyone who can listen to you say, by force, what does it mean when we are resisting what is bad? So wise and civilized way, what does it mean?
Everything should be discussed and considered in its relative way. Like when for example, if you are the leader of a tribe, or if you are the head teacher of a school, I'm sure when the head teacher of the school says something or says a ruling or whatever, it should be obeyed and discussed later. Forget about the details, but I'm just trying to set up. Or a teacher in a class, when he say something, it should be obeyed at that time. If anyone is objecting by saying by force, doesn't mean that he hit or do something, but he should use his authority, his capability. This is what it means by the force or yet. It doesn't mean fighting or whatever. If not, then by talking, only talking. Like that's why until now, I mean, when they found a naughty students or whatever, they separate them or ask them to leave the class. And this is all, we call it part of force or hand. Number two is bilisanihi, by saying you should do that, you shouldn't do that. And number three is by biqalbihi.
But would you advise, for example, Muslims living in the West now, sometimes they can change things, when they see poverty, when they see injustice, they can be active citizens and to say that's wrong, discrimination, racism. but there are social behaviors that are not Islamically accepted and they are widespread within the society. Should they denounce it? Should they speak out against it? What should they do?
They should use the allowed possible ways by saying allow the ways, the methods which are accepted and agreed by the society they live in, because Islam always encouraged us and urged us to be homogeneous within the society wherever we live in. Muslims, for instance, they are not, it's haram to wear what they call libas ahl al-shuhra. What's libas al-shuhra? It's the clothing which is not usual, unusual, which make people stare at you. By saying that, that doesn't mean the Muslim woman should wear a mini skirt because people will be pleased with her. But no, we should consider the appearance. And this is a simple example.
Yes, but look, this is a very interesting point that you are making, because some of the Muslims are saying, look, my role as a Muslim is to promote what is right and to do it myself. Now, when I see what is bad or the evil, I just need to keep a distance, but not to talk about it. So don't ask me to speak against what is bad. Let me do what is right. Now, the verses of the Quran and the Hadith are not saying this. And the Hadith that you mentioned is not only saying, be far from bad and do the good, is do the good and resist the bad. So you have to be active in resisting the bad. What would you say to Muslims telling you, no, I don't want to be involved against the bad, I just want to be involved in promoting the good?
Going back to the hadith, the Holy Prophet clearly explaining that the 3 steps should be considered. If it's the first one, if it's possibly can be done, then we do it. Otherwise, we go to the second one. So we don't try it. There is something which is called, there are 2 things I would like to just mention quickly. One of them is what we call تشخيص الموضوع. Second is العرف. تشخيص الموضوع mean the diagnosis of the circumstances or the case. Any Muslim, usually the fuqaha, the scholars, they issue ruling and they gave the ruling, and the practice of these rulings sometimes is in the hand of the mukallaf, of the normal of any person, you know, like they said khamr is haram, alcohol is haram. You can't, the faqih cannot say, well, the can in such and such shelf, this is haram or halal. He said khamr, alcohol is haram, and it's up to the mukallaf to diagnose whether this is khamr or not. And this is what we call tashkhis al-mawdu'. So the diagnosis most of the time is in the hand of people, in our hand. Like someone in the high street, whether he want to forbid evil or promote good or whatever, this is up to him to decide and diagnose. Islam give him the ruling and give him the common sense issues, and he need to use his common sense, and probably either he does the right thing or the wrong thing. And the ayat, the ahkam, the ahadith are clear about how to do that.
But when you live in the West and you start, for example, you were taking the example of the miniskirt and saying, this is from an Islamic perspective is against our way of understanding modesty, even from the urf, the custom and the tradition. Now, do we have to speak about it or just to say, that's not our way, we do what is right? So how do we resist what we think is not the right way of behaving?
I mentioned al-urf, custom, just a while ago, because urf has sometimes become like a hakim, like a very important thing to be considered in ruling, in practicing. And when it gets to the example of clothing, let's call it, rather the example of the miniskirt, there are different ways of hijab. The best way of doing that by practicing the right thing. In this society and even in other societies, there is a hadith about Al-Hasan wa Hussein alayhim salam. They were walking one day near a river and they saw an old man, he's trying to perform wudu, and his wudu was wrong. And what they did, Al-Hasan asked Al-Hussein that you go and do wudu same as Zaman, and then I correct your wudu. Rather than them going to the old man and saying, listen, you are the uncle, you are doing the wrong thing, you should do this, you should do that, because he's old and he should be respected. Once Al-Hasan salamullah alayhi taught Al-Hussein, the old guy came and he said, oh my God, I've been doing wudu in the wrong way, blah, blah, blah. And then, so this is the best example of how to promote good and to prevent sense. Rather than saying you should do this, you shouldn't do that, let's keep to ourselves within the... And I do remember in one of the colleges in Northwest London, that was 20 years ago, when there was a problem between the girls, they used to ask for the ladies, the girls, the sisters with hijab, and ask them about what happened in that class. The head teacher used to tell the parent, and one of them, they were my relatives, they said, because we know that those girls with hijab, they don't say lies, which is an excellent...
But that's exactly my point. I think this is a very good example. The two examples that you just gave, with Al Hassan or Hussein and then with this girl in school, in fact, would you agree if I summarize what you are trying to say by saying, look, instead of being active within the society by denouncing and condemning, the best way to act against the bad and the evil is to promote what is right, and to do it in a way which is visible. So your visibility is not in condemning, your visibility is in promoting what is the right thing. Exactly. Is this enough? If a Muslim is telling you this, would you accept his position or her position?
I would, but sometimes if he can say so, if he can do something, as I said, there is no black and white here, and there is no one line boundary, borderline between the two issues. The Muslim always is asked by Allah and the Prophet and the Imams and all schools and all logical whatever to use his common sense, to use his logic, and this is what Islam is for. Always وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمُوعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ. Always Allah is asking us to be wise, to be logical, rather than asking people and giving instruction, you should do this, you should do that. For instance, the issue of hijab, the issue of niqab. I don't like to say things against niqab, but our families, ladies, wherever, when they go to old towns, old Muslim towns, the tradition there is to cover the face, and this is the way they dress. But here, if they cover the face, everyone will stare at them in the high street, and that is what's called libas ahl al-shuhra, which Islam doesn't like. They can wear the decent hijab and covering everything without having people having a look at them and staring at them.
Thank you so much. I think that what you just said, it's important. And I think just to summarize our discussion, the first thing is to understand our responsibility as Muslim women and men is to promote what is right and to resist what is bad. And you said it in a way reminding us of the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which is you have to be involved actively. If not, you have to be involved verbally, and if not, at least with your heart. It means that you have something to do, but it could be that the best thing to do is to promote what is good and to be contributing to the society through what is good. And you added something which is important, but it's not a rule. Sometimes you have to use your mind, you have to use your understanding of the context and the society, and sometimes you have to resist. It depends on the situation. Promoting the right thing is the rule, and sometimes resisting in the right way depends on the situation. And I think that this is the wise way to deal with the society. Thank you for that. Well, that's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows you have seen, and here's the way to contact us.
We at Islam and Life would like to hear your views about the subjects that we discuss. We would also love to hear your suggestions for our program. So get in touch with us. You can share your thoughts with other Islam and Life fans, engage in debate, and find out how to watch our previous shows. Follow us on Twitter at Islam and Life TV, or join us on Facebook by liking our page, Islam and Life on Press TV.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Sayyid Fadr Bahrul Ulum. Thank you so much for being with us and your insight.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you next week, inshallah.